Song for you guys. I'm not a singer, but tell me if you know this one. It goes like this. What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? You got Is it the liquor that has you guys like so ready to party? Anybody else is a big Tina Turner fan? A little bit? Okay. We'll talk more about that. Now, you know what I find amazing about that song? It asks a pretty profound question of us. What does love have to do with it? And by it, I mean leadership. So today, I'm going to challenge everything that you know about effective leadership. I'd like to start with a brief exercise. And because you guys have made best friends over happy hour and you're now ready to kumbaya, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes just for a brief moment. And if you don't want to play along, that's totally fine with me. I want you to think back to a time when you were at a crossroads in life, facing some kind of big decision that would ultimately change the trajectory of your life. Who did you turn to in that moment? Who guided you when you felt utterly confused and in despair? Okay, hold on to that person in your mind and think about the words and the qualities that describe them. Okay, you can open your eyes. Now, keep that with you in your heart because it'll guide you for the rest of this presentation, I hope. Now, have you ever had a boss who made you feel absolutely invisible? If they're in this room, don't look at them. Maybe they micromanaged your every move. Maybe they dismissed your ideas without a second thought. You know who those bosses are. They don't make us feel good. Now, I want you to think about the educators and the teachers and those leaders in your life who shaped so much about who you are and what you decided to do. So picture for a moment that teacher who left a profoundly positive impact on you. Now, was it their years of experience that made them memorable? Was it the subject matter expertise that they had? Or perhaps their impressive degrees? Now, maybe all of those things played a small role, but I truly believe that what sets those people apart are the profound passion that they have for helping others learn and grow, and their desire to leave people and things, everything that they touch, better than they found them. And I believe after all of the years of experience that I've amassed, that the greatest teachers among us understand this fundamental truth. To lead well, you have to love well. Now, in my 2 decades of climbing the corporate ladder at some of the world's most influential but also high-pressured companies and brands, it's been fascinating because I've learned something. The higher you go in an organization, the more we seem to forget that fundamental truth. Something happens. We replace listening with lengthy PowerPoint presentations. We substitute care with complex key performance indicators. And we trade in authenticity for automation. And that's becoming more and more true with every waking moment of our lives. Now, I'm a researcher by trade, and here's what the research tells us. And I've learned this the hard way through triumph and failure, so I'm very, very happy to pass on this wisdom. And I know a lot of you guys know this, but I'm just here to bring it out. The most effective leaders aren't the ones with the most impressive strategic plans, though some of them go very far, nor are they the leaders with the most impressive credentials. Okay, so for a moment, since you're best friends, turn to someone next to you, just for a little bit, and I just want you to share that one word based on the exercise we did earlier of the best leader you've ever had. So 30 seconds, just the word that is top of mind that comes to you that describes the best leader you ever had. All right. I like it. Have I lost you guys? Are you ready? Yes. You're ready. All right, let's do this. So I'm willing to bet that nobody, although, if you did say strategic and efficient, like it's fine. There's no shame here, but I'm guessing that you shared words like supportive and inspiring and caring and motivating. I at least would hope so. Now I stand here proudly before you today because of a leader who embodied these qualities. Her name is Elise Kane, and she was my first corporate manager and mentor, and I really truly believe that I would not be here if it wasn't for her and what she saw in me. And so I utter her name in every keynote presentation I give because she deserves it. Now picture this. Way back when, little Nikkia in Manhattan, in a crowded conference room, senior leadership in the global toothbrush division of Colgate-Palmolive is hotly debating the 3-year strategy for one of the highest growth brands that they had just launched, the 360 toothbrush that had a tongue cleaner. It was a big deal back then. And I shared what I thought was an absolutely brilliant insight. I had just done global research in Poland, in France, and in Mexico, and I really wanted to impress upon leadership this idea. And it was coming from a place of genuinely wanting to contribute to the discussion. Minutes after I uttered the words, a colleague repeated my exact point with a man voice and got all the credit. Nothing against men. It's just, he just happened to be a guy. Now, what did I do? I sank into my chair, I crossed my arms, and I effectively disappeared from the rest of the meeting. I felt so hurt, so small, and did not really know how to recover from that. So later that day, Elise Kane called me into her office, and she said, Nikkia, you've got something special. You're a gifted communicator, a natural-born leader, and you have a ton of innate business acumen. But there's a critical leadership skill that I really want you to develop. It's called thick skin. Now, I thought she meant that I needed to toughen up because it was so obvious, everybody could see right through me, but it turns out that she meant that having the emotional intelligence to not take everything personally actually requires more sensitivity, not less. But I hadn't mastered that yet. I didn't know. But the thing that I want you to take away is that as a researcher, I'd spent countless hours observing people. At the end of the day, my job was to understand human behavior. So I would watch people shop. I would look at people in the toothbrush aisle, in the toothpaste aisle, in the soap aisle, pick up, put things down, not say a word. I would look at people in focus groups, the person who rolled their eyes as one participant stole all of the air out of the room. And then I would have to intuit what those unspoken signals meant. So I knew how important body language and facial expressions were in communication, but I didn't realize how important it was in the workplace. So Elise taught me something invaluable, and she taught me about how important it is to be aware of how loud our body language and our facial expressions can be. And especially like me, I'm a Caribbean woman who uses her arms a lot. And so when I retreat, it speaks volumes. So I became more aware and more intentional about the way that I carried myself, my body language, my facial expressions. I practice maintaining a calm and neutral demeanor during the most challenging discussions and hot debates. And this critical advice stayed with me throughout my entire career and helped me navigate the trickiest of situations with a ton of grace. Elise led well because she loved well. Fast forward to 2020, a year that tested everything I thought I knew about leadership. Every principle I had amassed came under fire during that time, pre-Elon. Now, Twitter, if you remember, because it feels like it was so far away because we tried to erase 2020, but it had become the epicenter of global conversations. In addition to that, we were going through a devastating pandemic. We had no idea what was going on. There was the resurgence of the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And there was this contentious presidential election going on. And everything was playing out on Twitter. So inside the company, chaos reigned. My research team wasn't just overworked, we were emotionally drained. As you can imagine, we were utterly burned out because we were grappling with these blurred lines and boundaries between work and life. Because at the end of the day, what we had to do was navigate this extreme, intense pressure on the outside, trying to solve problems of like misinformation, disinformation, abuse that travels from online to offline, all while experiencing that same pain as actual users of that same platform. And yet many people who were under me and across the company felt so disconnected from the company's mission and were really unsure of their impact. And we still had no vaccine. So we were doubly scared. So we huddled and I decided and pushed for company days of rest. Every third Monday, we would cancel all of the meetings and encourage everyone to just take the time to recharge, take the time to catch up. And it was tough because people felt personally committed to being there for the platform because everything was playing out. And we felt like our lives depended on it. So I encouraged team members to take off even if they felt like they couldn't. But beyond the structural changes that were going on inside the company, what I was trying to do was to lean into people's humanity and recognize that at the end of the day, like we work, we get paid, but we're people with real lives and real things that we want to accomplish and other humans that we have to show up for. And all too often we forget that truth. I remember really clearly there was one time a team member confided in me about the struggle she was going through with imposter syndrome and anxiety from what felt like this relentless pace of work. Now imagine if you're working on a platform, but you have to tweet on that platform and then people are piling on hate on the same platform. And that's your job. There's no separation. And we're like sitting at a desk all day. So instead of trying to fix it, though every fiber in my body wanted to try and help this woman, I just listened. And then I started to share my own moments of self-doubt and vulnerability as a leader. And I was doing so to try to normalize this experience that we aren't perfect. None of us have it figured out, no matter how senior we are or how much success we have. Emphasizing that their worth was not tied to their output. I also tried to make space for team-wide conversations about burnout, which was becoming a real hot topic back in 2020, and resilience. And I tried to create this environment where vulnerability was okay. If anything, vulnerability wasn't a weakness, it was a courageous act to say, I'm scared too. And it was not only accepted, thankfully, it was valued. Now, at the same time, inside Twitter, things were crumbling. So I worked to protect the team from the company's internal chaos. So when leadership debates arose, for example, should we launch this new feature quickly because we want to get ahead of competition, even though we haven't checked to see whether the safeguards are in place? Or how do we moderate content and hate speech? I made it my mission to advocate for the mental and emotional well-being of my team. And I try to remind decision makers, and this is a very scary thing to do because money's on the line, that people aren't just tools to solve problems. They're humans navigating the same storm as you. Now, the results of this people-first approach were profound. So my team, this is a snapshot of my leadership team at the time, and their teams aren't on this little screen, but we didn't just survive the chaos, we thrived. Our engagement scores improved, the innovation that we produced continued to flow, and the insights that we were churning out about what people wanted and what the world needed shaped key decisions and balanced both the needs of users, people, with business goals. And so we were able to say to Twitter back then, you focus on the people and guess what, the profits follow. And one of my proudest moments is when a colleague came to me and said, this is the first time I've felt seen at this company. A testament to the value and power of a people-centered leadership. So what I learned at this time was this. In moments of crisis, leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about holding space for others. It's about protecting your people, fighting for their rights, nurturing their well-being, and ensuring that they feel valued. To lead well, you must love well. And sometimes love looks like listening. It looks like advocating. It looks like creating safe spaces, especially in the midst of change and chaos. Okay, now you might be thinking, great, Nikkia, this is wonderful. These are your stories, but like, what about all the evidence? Aren't you a researcher? So I'm going to share something that I find fascinating. Adam Grant, who is an American scholar and academic, has many wonderful books. In his groundbreaking book, Not Dare to Lead, Give and Take, he identifies 3 types of leaders in the workplace. There are the givers, the takers, and the matchers. Now, I'd like to think that I'm a giver, though my family might argue that I'm really good at giving unsolicited advice. That aside, Adam Grant's research shows something quite remarkable. The organizations that he included in this massive study that have leaders who are predominantly givers have 31% lower rates of turnover. So much higher retention than those that have a disproportionately lower number of givers. These organizations also have significantly higher performance outcomes. And the one thing that I think you guys can all internalize, and I know that you're going to talk about a lot in your workshop, is that leaders who are givers approach every interaction by asking one question. Can anybody guess what that one question is? Oh, you guys are so good. How can I help you? What can I do for you? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the beginning of what the research shows about the power of people-centered leadership. So let me share some other really compelling findings. So psychological safety. How many of you are familiar with this term that has really kind of taken organizational psychology by storm? Wonderful. So psychological safety, is this feeling of safety, being so safe that in your organization, in your team, you can take risks and be vulnerable with your team with no fear of retribution. Amy Edmondson, another amazing American scholar, she's currently a professor of leadership at Harvard Business School. She conducted groundbreaking research at Harvard that shows this incredible statistic. High psychological safety and organizations that have teams that feel psychologically safe are 35% more likely to achieve innovation breakthroughs. And I think in a world where we aren't like rolling around in cash, and particularly when you're in a position in the market where you're not market leader and trying to figure out how do we eke out innovation that is so needed that our customers want it. I think it's counterintuitive to assume that anything to do with organizational psychology will help, but the research shows this. And we have real world evidence from Google. So Google was really interested in diagnosing what is the secret to having the best teams. And so they had this project called Google Project Aristotle, where they looked at 180 teams totaling 37,000 employees. And they found that the one distinguishing element that determined whether or not a team was going to be high performing and amazing was the level of psychological safety embedded in it. So there's a lot of research that supports the importance of psychological safety. Then there's empathy, another word that's really become vogue in the last 5 years and decade or so. Now, the Center of Creative Leadership finds that leaders who are high empaths and are able to cultivate highly empathetic teams for their leadership have teams that are 50% more engaged. And you may be wondering, okay, great, 50% more engaged, what does that lead to? There's a direct relationship between the level of engagement and productivity. So according to Gallup, these highly engaged employees are likely to be 21% more productive and significantly more likely to develop creative solutions to complex problems. And it makes sense. If you feel safe, you could think of your own home, and if you're a parent, the kind of environment you're creating. If you're feeling safe to challenge your parents, and your parents are like, okay, I don't like your attitude, but let me hear you, there's likely to be something coming out of your child's mouth that's worth listening to, a new idea that you hadn't thought of, and the same holds true in organizations. So let me bring this to life, all of this great data with some powerful real-world examples. So Satya Nadella, so he came into Microsoft in 2014. Microsoft was still doing well, but really had been kind of ousted by these other companies in tech. And he was like, okay, I'm inheriting this company that is known for its cutthroat culture. And on top of that, we are not market leaders anymore. What are we going to do? Now, instead of maintaining the status quo and trying to figure out how he could cut costs here and cut costs there, he did something incredibly revolutionary for the time, but not really. He introduced this idea of the growth mindset, basically transforming Microsoft from a team of know-it-alls to a team of learn-it-alls. And to have a bunch of people go from, I know everything, I don't know anything, I don't need to know anything, to I want to learn, requires a kind of empathy and understanding of how to unlock things in people that I think only people-centered leaders can bring. So the results, phenomenal market value. Microsoft has gone from being worth 300 million to close to 3 trillion in just a matter of years. It's incredible. And they didn't get through this period by aggressively cutting costs and having mass layoffs like a lot of their competitors and really just being ruthless with their competitive spirit. Simply, they created the environment where employees felt safe and empowered to contribute and to take calculated risks. And nurturing that has led to incredible business results. Incredible. I mean, that is astounding. Now, here's what ties all of this research together. A Harvard Business Review analysis reveals that companies with highly engaged employees are 21% more profitable. So we're talking about safety, we're talking about engagement, and then to be able to be like, and you're profitable, I think this story makes a lot of sense. So when we create these communities within our small teams, our business units, and then our organizations, and then our companies, honestly, trust, empathy, psychological safety, all of these things improves people's lives, but more importantly, it delivers incredible business results for the companies that we work for. So for me, at the core, loving leadership is something that is important. It requires this fundamental shift and transformation in how we see ourselves in the workplace. It's a journey from being self-centered, me, to being other-centered. How can I help you? So instead of seeking validation, what do we need to do more of? We have to learn to offer it. Instead of taking credit, we have to learn to give it. Instead of focusing on our individual success, we need to begin to focus on our collective success. But somehow the shift can still be incredibly challenging. Why is that? Because as human beings, we are wired to compare ourselves to others. We are wired to worry about what other people think of us. And organizations foster this competitive spirit. We're always just looking around asking, am I competent enough? Am I strategic enough? Am I strong enough? But here's the profound truth that I've learned. The moment we stop obsessing all the time about how others perceive us, which I know is hard, Instagram makes it harder, and start focusing how others feel in our presence, that's when true leadership begins. How do you feel in my presence? So the question becomes, how can we make this shift practical? How do we walk away from this moment together as best friends with a tangible blueprint or framework on how to inculcate some of these principles into our everyday ways of being a leader? How do we transform these insights into daily actions that create the kinds of environment that we just talk about, where people thrive and businesses thrive as well? That's why I developed the L.O.V.E framework, guys. It's a practical guide to help us navigate this shift from self-centered leadership to other-centered leadership. It's also a good framework for relationships, if you don't mind me saying so myself. So the goal really here is to think about how you can lead through love. And let me break it down for you.